Well, everybody, we'll get started. I want to make sure everybody's in the right room. This is about CRM. Everybody there? Okay. You guys wouldn't mind coming down closer, would you? Come on, this is not school. You don't go in the back of the classroom now. Come on. Well, I can't get you to move, huh? My name is Howard Leavitt. I've been in the car business over 40 years. Born in 1832. I started out as a parts driver at $65 a week and told I would make $120 if I was able to get up to the parts counter in, speak up, in, if you can't hear me, raise your hand, okay, in 4 months. Well, it took almost a year, but I got there. But during my career, I had the fortune of going to a Ford seminar, and during that period, they taught you about data management and how to collect data and what to do with it. And they showed you, took you to Nordstrom's, they took you to the department stores, how they treated customers, and they showed us a woman in Dallas, Texas, who sold Western clothing around the world. And she had a 5x8 index card on every customer she had. And it had to do with their relationships with that customer as well as pertinent data about that customer. And the light went on, and I got a passion for collecting data and how to use it to sell cars. It seemed, why couldn't we do the same thing in the automobile business? And that was over 20 years ago. And it's been my life in running sales departments to do that. What you should and should not expect from a CRM. I think I'm going to come down. I got about a vertigo, by the way, so I might wind up sitting on a chair doing this thing, okay? What you should and should not expect from a CRM. It's technology. You should expect the technology to help you sell cars and run your business, but only if you use it. Only if you're able to use the pieces of the puzzle to make it work. Choosing a CRM, you and the factory. Sometimes you have an adversarial role with the franchise. They want you to do certain things and you don't want to do it that way. But at the end, you have common interests. So how do you make those interests work together? Evaluating your staff in the sales process. I'm not sure we do it right. I think we accept weaknesses and are not willing to address them, and have salespeople in our dealerships that, because we haven't spent the time on resources to get new ones, we keep old ones, or we don't measure them. We don't measure them correctly. Removing the roadblocks to success. Well, culture. How many people are in a dealership and the culture's one way, you've done it for years, and you didn't do your diligence, and so you're doing the same thing you did 20 years ago? Guess what? It's changed. The business has changed. So what do you do about that? What you should expect from a CRM. What's your expectations? Is it just what the factory's telling you? How many people here have a CRM? I had a feeling at this show that would happen. But do you know what it means? To me, it means relationships. How do you collect relationship information? What do you do with it? And then how do you manage that to turn it into a sale? If you're just accepting it because you were told this is the way you got to do business, it's not going to gain you what you need to gain out of it. What you should expect from a CRM. Should you expect to be able to get internet leads quickly? Yeah. It's the obvious thing. It's actually called an ILM. I got asked by a vendor out there, what's the difference between an ILM and a CRM? Well, in essence, nothing except one's coming from internet leads and the other's coming maybe from walk-in traffic and phone calls. So you have to be able to manage that in a process, whether it's round robin, whether it's a business development center, or whether you're assigning it to a specific salesman. So it's one of the things you need to look, whether you have a CRM, is it managing it properly now, or you're looking to get a CRM. Well, we all want to increase our customer base, but if you don't manage that data like that woman in Dallas, you're not going to be able to increase your customer base. You're going to lose that investment in customers. It costs money every time a customer walks across your threshold, whether it's an internet lead or whether it's a phone call. Do you want to throw that out? Or do you want to keep that information and use it? Matchbook covers, for some people don't work. Ensure effective long-term follow-up. Long-term follow-up. Should you have action plans in place that periodically have the salesperson call a customer? There are standards in the industry about that. And you need to know those standards and apply it in your business cycle, in your business process. If you have orphan owners, and everybody here runs into orphan owners, what are you doing with those people that built a relationship with the dealership, but also those salespeople that left? Is there a way to follow those people up? Provide accountability of your staff. Do you want to know what they're doing on a daily basis, no matter where you are? If you're at the auction, you're away, you should be able to open up your CRM application, hopefully using a cloud-based system, and find that and make it work for you. Retain customers longer and turn them into repeat customers. Soft points. Do you want to know the birthdays of customers? Do you want to know the anniversary dates? Do you want to know their children? Do you want to not just call up and say, how's the automobile? Or, hey, that was a great party I heard that you had. You really want to build a relationship. It's the essence of what a CRM is. And if you don't retain that information and don't keep with the customers, you're not going to get it. Get more referrals from your existing customers. Well, how do you do that? If you had 500 customers as a salesperson, what percentage do you think would be referrals? It's probably 10%. And of that 10%, you'd have another 10% that was maybe the core that you'd get. You need to somehow code that person. The CRM should be able to do that for you so you can keep renewing those referrals by going back to that person. Show your strengths and weaknesses. Okay? It should tell you Salesman A is doing a great job based on the matrix you're looking at, and Salesman B is not. And why wouldn't you keep the Salesman B that was not? Jack Welch ran GE for, 25 years. And he had a 20-60-20 plan. Big company. Car dealerships aren't that size usually. Okay. So the top 20 just had to be up there. The middle 60 was striving to be up in the top, and you had your 20% bottom dwellers. Do you really want to keep those 20%? They're not going to be effective for you in selling cars, and you're going to justify the weaknesses instead of addressing them. You need to address it and spend the money you need to get good salespeople. What you should not expect a CRM to do. It's not going to make you the champion. You have to be the champion. I'm a firm believer that you need to manage dealerships and sales forces. You don't need a system to manage it. You need to be personally involved in the daily process of the CRM. It's not going to run your business. It's not going to make decisions for you. It's going to give you ideas and thoughts. But if you're not the champion, then it's not going to run your business at all. Corrects bad sales behavior. It depends what you think bad sales behavior is. I worked in a Jaguar store in the middle 80s and had a very strict owner who kept the temperature control either too high or too low. Either customers were uncomfortable, we were uncomfortable, and he had a box on it where you can't get in there. So one of the salesmen figured out with a big paper clip you can change the temperature. So the owner comes down, I'm sitting at my desk, he's facing me, the thermostat's right outside my door. And he says, Howard, it's too hot in the showroom. I said, okay, it's too hot. Now I know the temperature's set in the wrong way. I says, Elliot, it can't be. Let's go look at the thermostat. So we walk out of my office, we look at the thermostat, and he looks at it and he goes, yeah, it's set right, Howard. Because one of my salespersons who knew how to do that, while Elliot was in my office, went over to the thermostat where he couldn't be seen and changed it and put it to the proper setting. Is that bad behavior? I was happy with it that day, and I accepted that behavior. But the bad behavior I'm talking about is not that kind of stuff. It's the kind of stuff where a guy enters a customer in the system, and the system pulls out partial duplicates, and he goes past it. He changes the name. He changes the phone number. You paid for that lead. Why accept that? Or he tells other salespeople how to change the system to make it work for him. They find tricks in every system that's out there to do backdooring things. At the end of the day, you've paid for this monthly fee, you've paid for the customer to walk across it, and you've accepted bad behavior. The system won't fix that. You, as a champion, have to fix that. make salespeople embrace. Well, we're all mentors at the end of the day, aren't we? We're all teachers. If we don't spend the time teaching and mentoring and prove to them that there's a benefit for putting the information in the system and collecting it, then they will not become embraced. They just won't use it. They'll find the back door to use it. Choosing a CRM, you versus the factory. Well, it's a marriage. How many times in your home, for everybody who's married or has a partner, you had an adversarial role? You each wanted to do something differently. And you had well intentions, but you had some disagreement about it. Well, there really shouldn't be a disagreement because you have common interest, but there's a conflict. Has the factory standardized showrooms? They make you try to build it a certain way? Yep, okay. Do they give you point of sale materials that are the same? Do they want to have the same buying experience? We understand that, don't we? I mean, if you go to Louis Vuitton or you go to McDonald's or you go to Target, it's similar. You know, you could be any part of the country. It's a similar process. So understanding why the factories want to standardize certain things in the showroom is clear. But why do they want to standardize CRMs? They want to standardize it because they want peer pressure. They want to have the rep walk into your office one day and show you a list or get you on the web and say, hey, how come you're rating on this particular item down here when the other stores are up there? They're taking competition and trying to make you excel because of a number of reasons. Do we do it with salespeople? Do we put a racetrack up on the board and get salespeople to see how they're doing against each other? We do. Well, they're trying to do the same thing because they have a common goal at the end of the day. Do they lack confidence that you're going to follow up? Also retain customers. How many stories, anybody in here, if a customer walked in and said, I'm buying the car here because you called me, and the other guy didn't? Okay. Well, you say, gee whiz, I did a really good job. The guy called and he came down and I bought a car. You're not even thinking about the ones in your sales staff that didn't call and the ones you lost because it's a common story. Do you walk into your showroom and there's a bunch of salesmen sitting in a corner looking out the window, having a cup of coffee, talking about life? It doesn't make them bad. It means they don't have direction. They're not using the CRM to follow up. The manager's not involved in the system. So you need to get them involved in that. But that's why the factories have that point of view. But who knows the sales process in your dealership better? You guys do. They come in, the rep comes in, sits at the desk, watches what's going on back and forth, goes over the reviews, gets you to order cars, looks at your CSI, tells you what you're doing wrong, what you could do better. But does he really know what's the actual interaction on the sales floor? He's got a generic point of view. We all do things differently in this country. When I started out doing this and doing what I do, I was amazed at the difference in the processes around the country. It didn't matter where the region was. It mattered about how they started their business and how they decided to do things. The factories got different expectations. So we have a perspective of how we want to do sales and how we want to run the process, and the factory's got theirs. So is there an adversarial role or difference? Yeah, but what is the conflict? The conflict isn't there because we both want to do the same thing, don't we? They want to produce more cars and keep owner retention and get you to sell more cars and make more money. Because in the end, what happens to them? So it is a common goal. So how do you satisfy their requirements and at the same time do it your way? What's the answer? The answer is best course for your dealership by evaluating your sales process. You got to do diligence, people. You have to know your sales process and your people. So how do you evaluate the sales process? Do you need to know what you need first out of the CRM? What you're trying to accomplish? What are your goals? Where's the pain? Okay? Everybody here who runs a sales department has a pain somewhere. It could be an individual salesperson, it could be the accounting office, it could be the owner, it could be anybody, but you have a pain. You need to know what that is. Well, do you need a mobile solution for your CRM? Do you need to be able to, not break my pointer, do you need to be able to access the data anywhere? Okay? I have some dealers who only want people to work at their desktop. They don't want them accessing on the lot. They don't want them accessing off-site. It's old school. In today's world, with smartphones and tablets, you need to be able to have a mobile solution. You need a timely way to manage the leads. Again, the round robin, the BDC, dedicated people. It's a 24/7 business on the internet. It doesn't stop just because the dealership closes at night. You need a way to manage that in a process that you know you have the best chance. Some of you are probably familiar with AutoBytel when they first started in the internet lead business, and they had a 6-step process. One email, another email, another email. No phone calls at the time. You had to go through the email process. But they dominated the market in the beginning. Well, there's lots more ways to do it nowadays. Customers are smarter. A place to store customer references and referrals. Those referrals I talked about earlier, how are you going to retrieve them? How are you going to know? So the CRM you're going to look for is things you need to know. If you don't have it in your process, if you're disregarding it, then you need to pay attention to it. Relationship building. Birthdays. Okay? In that Jag dealership I worked, the owner, first month I was there, gave me a bar graph paper with everybody's birthday that was due that month and asked me to give it to the salespeople to send out birthday cards and call the customer. I said, you're crazy. Why am I going to waste my time doing that? He said, because people buy cars in and around their birthday. It's a soft point. A lot of us don't think about it. There's more knowledge about that today than there was then. So we had a friendly bet that if I proved he was wrong in 90 days and I was right in following another strategy, the winner would pick a restaurant and the loser would pay for it. Well, it was the most expensive meal I have ever had in my life at that time because he was absolutely right. And birthdays are an important piece. You're building that relationship with the customer. To more quickly and easily find customer contact and deal information. How many times have we gone up to the accounting office and asked the controller for the deal? Because you wanted to look at where the customer bought the car previously. Because it's a pattern. They follow patterns. Okay? You don't want to do that. In a lot of cases, the controller won't give you the deal jacket. She'll make you sit there and write down what's coming out of it. You want to be able to go in the CRM, find the information, look at all the cars that person purchased, what he spent, and what value he's offered to the dealership, and reciprocate it back somehow in putting a deal together on the next car. Do you want to see where you're getting return on investment? We all get reports from AutoTrader, Cars.com, whatever service, telling what a great job they're doing, and they do. But does it match what the CRM is telling you? Are the leads valuable? Are you getting enough return on investment? You want to be able to measure your business. Accountability. Again, watching the sales staff. I was working in Rhode Island, and I was off-site. I was coming back from an auction, and I called in looking for some of the guys to see what was going on. And I had no way at that time to see what they were doing on a daily basis. I get back to the dealership, and these two salespeople were still missing. And then I get a call from the local police. They wanted me to go down and get these guys at the hospital. They'd gone out for a big gulp, and they needed gas, so they gassed up, and the fire extinguishers went off, and they were coated in white powder, and the car was covered in white powder, and I had to bring them back. Now, if I was able to see what was going on a daily basis, I don't know if I'd have stopped that. But I would at least know what's going on a daily basis with them by the minute. So you need to make it accountable by having them know that you're watching what's going on. They have to realize what's going on. There's a thing called formal one-on-ones, where you actually sit with the salesman and go over every lead that he's working on, versus walking up and say, tell me about Mr. Jones. Because you remember Jones as a deal. We all do it. But the reality is this business in the application, in the CRM, that will bring you to more deals if you're working it with the salesman. Remember, managers see deals and salespeople don't a lot of times. To know what appointments are scheduled daily and weekly. I used to work 10-day cycles. If I had carryovers, it was a plus. But in the first 10 days of the month, I'd know where my business was going. Did I have to forecast each month and tell everybody where we thought the numbers are going to be by the end of the month? Yes, I did. Did I want to be surprised in the last 5 days of the month with no business? So if I knew I had a good 10-day cycle, then the middle months, middle 10 days, were going to be stronger, hopefully. But if I didn't make my month by the 20th day, I was in trouble. So instead of just looking at a 30-day cycle, I wanted to know how many appointments are scheduled, how many demos are scheduled, where's the business? You got 1,000 leads in the system. Where's all this business? Salespeople think they got a deal. You need to be able to look at that documentation and see what's actually going on during the week. What are they processing? What is going to make a deal? And break the month into smaller ingredients. You can manage it more effectively. Follow-up structure. There are systems in a CRM that will set automatic follow-up structure every 3 days, every 10 days. You customize it to the dealership. But think about the salesman. He makes the phone call. He's off the phone with the customer. He knows he's got to see the guy in 3 days. Now he's got to go in and readjust that automatic task because the tasks 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 have no value at that point based on that action that happened there. You have to teach and mentor them how to follow up. If you want the system to do it and you don't teach them, it's not going to happen because they just don't know. They get off the phone, they go get a cup of coffee, and they walk to the next stop. And you want the system to give them that work plan each day, to remind them what the next step is going to do. But they have to put the effort in first. We talked about exercising using the system. That's part of it. Create a plan of what you have to do to get ready for a new CRM. If you know your needs, what's the next step? Okay? Because you didn't say yes to the factory on the choices they gave you. You want to know where you are first. Computer equipment. If you think you're going to use kiosks and have salesmen lined up waiting to punch in their information, mistake. It's not going to happen. You're trying to save some money because you don't want to put the resources into the equipment that's needed. You need to think about tablets. You need to think about easy way to mobily do what you've been doing traditionally a different way. If you got old hardware, it might not be satisfactory, by the way. You might have to upgrade the old hardware and the software systems to work on whatever you're going to do, whatever CRM you're going to pick. Appoint a champion. And that champion has to be the person that's working with the person doing diligence looking for the CRM. You can't have one group buy it and another person expect to use it who didn't know the whole process. Because so many times you get the decision maker to make the decision and they haven't really shared it with everybody else in the dealership. And all of a sudden, it's not working properly. I mean, that seminar I told you I went to, they wind us up in a chair. We had all the managers of the dealership there, and the owner was in the first chair. And they secretly told him what the mission was, and he had to translate it to each person in a row. By the time it got to the last person, it wasn't anything what the original person said. So you need to find a champion that's going to run the process and make it work. Determine which aspects of the process to make mandatory and how to enforce it. There are systems out there that enforce certain procedures. You can't go to B unless you do A. Well, bad behavior comes in place because the salesman's not going to let the system slow him down, is he? So he'll put what he needs to do to keep the sale process going. You don't want the CRM to stop the flow of the sales process, but you need to make it a condition of employment of what you're trying to get. You can't accept weaknesses. Conduct a staff meeting to set expectations. It's a village. You got to bring them in. You need to get the salespeople and the managers to buy into the process and make them understand what you're trying to do and sell cars, how you're going to do it, and what more effective it's going to be. So you need this meeting as part of the process. You might find things out from these salespeople that help you in your decision-making process. Evaluate the skill levels of your sales staff in order to choose the right CRM. It's only a few. What's the technical proficiency? Are they good, they bad? I had customers in Pennsylvania and New Mexico. In both cases, it was similar stories. Managers said, these salespeople will not adapt, these two salespeople, to your system. They're 75 years old. So I kind of giggled. I said, okay, they're 75. I understand that, okay. What's the problem? Well, they don't have any computer skills. So I'm in New Mexico on a trip, and I stop in at the dealership, and they point them out. I go in the office and sit down with him. He says, could you have a seat? A nice, cozy office. All his papers wrapped around him and everything. And he's on a computer. And he's playing with the mouse. He said, you got a minute? I said, sure. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm buying some clothes. I said, you buying clothes? Oh, yeah, I could do this on the internet. I could buy clothes. I don't have to go to the store. I just have to click here and there, and I could buy some clothes. He said, he finished up. And he said, I thought they told me that you can't handle a computer. You don't know how to work it. Yeah, I don't. I don't know a damn thing about this thing. Yeah, he didn't know about Excel. He didn't know about Word. But he knew how to make the mouse go from point A to B. But the management, the point is the management didn't know he had the basic skills that he could operate the system. So you get a very complex system, maybe. Are you going to have more trouble in getting some people up and running and not use it effectively? So you need to take these items and think about what you're going to need with regard to your staff. And look at the system that you're going to pick that works with your staff the best. And you might want to do it a notch over. You might want to push the envelope. You don't want to get it too simple. You want to get it so that it'll be effective for you. What are your expectations from the vendor? What do you want guys like me to actually do? Just give it to you? Will you just give it away? Okay. Questions to ask. Is it web-based or hardware soft-based? It's really, I have a strong opinion on this, just not because I have a web-based application, but because I think it's the only way to go. You need access mobility. You need not to worry about things that happen when you have a hardware and software application and process. It's back to that computer equipment we talked about, part of the whole solution, okay? Microsoft has got Office on the web right now. You don't need to buy the hard version and have it on your hard drive. You can put it in the cloud. You can put Google Docs in the cloud. So why wouldn't you have a CRM, which theoretically would be the state of the art in a web-based solution? Long-term contract required. There isn't a dealer that should buy a contract on anything, because what happens? The technology changes tomorrow. So if you think you're getting a discount because you turned a one-year contract or a 5-year contract, you need to think about that. Why would you do that? When you're locked in, you might not know what's going to happen down the road, and there's something that will work better, and the application should be able to adjust for it. The vendor should win your confidence every day. You should never have a doubt about the relationship with the vendor. What's the cost of setup, and how long will it take? I've seen some crazy figures out there. I've seen 10,000, 20,000. And you wonder, why do they need so much money to set it up? I mean, it kind of makes you wonder. You should question the setup costs and how long will it take to get set up. Where do you want to go with it? Do you want to be a quick transition? Are you getting pressure from the OEM? Again, do your diligence about it. Is there mobile access? Again, we're repeating some of the same themes here because mobile access is essential in this. Is the interface easy to use or complex? Do you want the sizzle or do you want the steak? Okay. If you buy sizzle, you might not wind up with a satisfactory scenario. You might wind up with a high monthly fee and not enough matrices in the improvement of your business. Will the staff get one-on-one training? I know some systems require the salesperson to go in the system and take a test. And if it's a test like I remember from the factory having us take a test, it's usually a group plan versus one-on-one. I am a believer that you need to train salespeople one-on-one, you need to train managers one-on-one, and you need to set up the administrators one-on-one. And then they all need to know it, and it needs to be continual. Technical support. Is it ongoing, or has it got a time period? Or are you paying for it? We all have DMSs. We've all paid monthly fees for support. Big bill every month. And you might not ever use it because only maybe 20% of the DMS applications actually get used, the features. So you have to judge what's worth it and what's not worth it. How will my staff get help when needed? Are they going to call an 800 number? Are they going to call overseas? Is it an in-house support? Is it 24/7? How is it? Because something's going to go wrong. Not so much the glitch in an application, but the simple process of how do you do the next step? Is there a manual online? Is there help online? Updates and upgrades. We all know on the DMS side, there are many different versions out there, depending on where your contract lies and whether you bought ASP or whether you bought a box in the store. You want to know if you're going to be on the same version. It also goes back to the contracts, getting locked in if you're going to get contracts. And you want to know that anything that changes in technology, will there be a reasonable chance you're going to get it? A lot of dealers, a lot of vendors talk, and they talk about what they want, and the vendors say, yeah, we're going to have that, and I'll have it for you in 6 months. And 6 years later, it finally shows up on the deck. We've all gone through that process. So you want a vendor that's going to tell you the truth. He might lose the sale, but you want the truth at the end of the day. Is it scalable? You're going to buy another franchise? You're going to have multi-rooftops? You're going to have more users? Do you want to get stuck in one rooftop and you can't use it across the board? At the end of the day, you really want all your dealerships using the same system. You don't want one in one place and one in the other place. Is the data secure and redundant? Well, it's in the cloud. Does that mean it's safe? Is it your data? Is it being shared by anybody? You want to know their process of how they make sure it's there and that it can come back if something happens to the internet. Or if it goes down, okay? And you're stuck at that point. So you want to make sure you can collect your data. Can you export it in a clean format? Not every CRM can export all the data. Sales history comes from your DMS. It gets imported into your CRM. CRM has notes, has other information, has about the customer. So if you're going to switch or change systems, how do you get that data out? Okay? Yeah, the initial information you could pull out, but not everybody can pull it out in a format that's usable and transportable. Determine your baseline performance so you could measure improvements. First day on the CRM, you better know some matrices of the salespeople. You need to know where you sit. Otherwise, how are you going to measure improvements? You're not going to be able to, are you? You're not going to know whether the CRM has value to you. Or you're just selling the same amount of cars and now you're going through another process. Okay? So unless you know where you sit, and there's only 3 examples of matrices. Some people have a whole list. I know a friend of mine runs 28 Group dealership on Long Island, and he had Reynolds build a matrix for all his different stores because he sits at his desk. He's not at the 28 places. Depending on the size, you want to be able to know what's important to you in your dealership. Those pieces of the puzzle we talked about that are key elements for you. It's going to be an eye-opener, too, because you're going to have salespeople in your staff that have been there a long time, and you didn't know whether they're taking a lot of ups, burning a lot of ups, or what their status really is. You need to have a clear understanding of that. Sizzle and steak. How many times have people gone into stores and bought all the options on the feature box? You're shaking your head yes, okay? Well, you buy all those options, and then you have this big price tag at the end, and maybe you're getting 20, 30% use out of it. The OEM's not telling you to buy the one with all the options on it. It's telling you to buy a CRM. Okay? So you have to look at the difference in it, and you have to decide which makes sense and which doesn't make sense to you based on your sales process. So if you've done your needs, you've done your goals, you know the pain, you know the process you want, you're doing your diligence, you're going to come up to the right solution. Remove the roadblocks to success. Why do systems fail? I'm trying to make this so I don't bore you to death, by the way. Why do systems fail? Staff is resistant to change. How difficult do you have in getting people to do what you want? I got people shaking their head here. You walk in, you have a nice sales meeting, you discuss what's going on, and at the end, what happens? Right. You just can't get them to do it for some reason because they're so used to doing it one way. When I went to work at this Jack store on Long Island in the 90s, it was the biggest Jack store in the country at the time. And it was in a terrible year. Jag had only sold 8,000 cars that year. Actually, they're not doing much better right now. But they were doing the same thing they had done for 20 years. So it was obvious to me, coming from the outside looking in, that we need to change some things. And they said, you can't do that. The owner won't let you do it. I said, he'll let me do it. And we changed it. Because I had power to change the culture. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't be there. You have to have some discipline. Otherwise, everybody's going to be a manager and everybody's going to decide what they want to do. Laziness and complacence. They get lazy. If you don't use your tools every day, what happens? If you're not in a system every day, if you're not seeing ups every day, if you're not talking on the phone, what happens to you? You lose your perspective on what to do. You forget how to sell the car. You sit there when a customer asks a question and you're so happy to have somebody to talk to that you forget the whole thing. So they get lazy. No enforcement or accountability. If you think the system's going to manage it, there's a theme here, okay? It's not going to manage it. It's only going to alert you. It's going to give you an idea of where to go and what to do. A champion will, if you believe in it, okay, will get your staff on board and resistance to change. Why will he get the sales staff on board? Because he knows his mission. He knows what he's trying to accomplish. His pay is based on performance. He needs to get the salespeople to do what he wants to put the numbers on the board. If he doesn't, what's going to happen? So if you're just expecting to look at a graph and a chart and tell you what the system's telling you and don't have an active participant, you're never going to get the salesman past point A. Ensure effective use. It's teaching and mentoring. I can't tell you how many times I walk into a dealership and I ask the sales manager to show me the system they're using, and he has no clue. Well, I'm not really in that. The salesmen use it, and sometimes they enter it, and sometimes they don't. You know, how many ups and information is walking out the door that you didn't know about? The champion really is the person responsible, the person that helped buy the system, did the diligence, and is involved in making it work every day. Keep your staff accountable. Again, accountability. The formal one-on-ones. I had to do formal one-on-ones every day with every salesman, or I couldn't go home. Did we cheat? Yeah, we absolutely cheated because there was too many to go on because we didn't have a computer system. But you need to know every day what's going on in the system. You need to know where your potential sales are. You need to be able to classify them. You need to know that salesman put his time in during the day. In the end, it's a marriage, right? Between you and the OEM and your sales staff. With conflicts, with issues, but compromise. And if you could pull the two sides together to realize what are you trying to accomplish? You're trying to accomplish to sell another car, to keep a customer, to retain that customer, to make it work better for you and the dealership and that customer, and to get referrals. So it's not an adversarial role, it's a compromise role. You got the same thing in mind. And that is this quick presentation. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.